seems that mine has started. Okay, so we are ready to start. As it is. I will give it to you. So, Marina, it's a pleasure for me to have this kind of interview with you. I would like you... we need to... Yeah, of course. Now we can speak loudly.
Yeah, so it's better for the quality of the voice.
It is better for the quality of the voice. So I would like you to tell us a few things about what you are doing with teaching, with philosophy, and with your idea about jazz education. So feel free to put us into a context.
Yeah. Okay. I started my interest in philosophy for children really at the beginning of my PhD PhD program. So, around 90. Okay. So, in that period, I was looking for the possibility to link philosophy of science. Particularly, I was interested in analytic philosophy in Wittgenstein, and education, because the PhD program was on educational sciences. And I was a little bit worried about the effect that the study of philosophy in itself has had to me.
Had to?
To me, on me.
All right.
Just study philosophy in itself as theoretical object was really a little bit dangerous for me. So I decided to try to change the perspective on the philosophy as object of my interest and as a really fundamental opportunity for growing. But, in a more practical way, more closer to life. Because as a theoretical object, I feel that would be dangerous for me, for my health. Because, I really...
Why would that be dangerous?
Dangerous as regards my well-being. It was something that closed in myself, in my reflection on myself, in the relation of others, but in a conceptual way. And this is just a short point in my biography. It's not so important, but it's important for me because it was the starting point for exploring other dimensions of philosophical thinking. And in that inquiry, I found Matthew Lipman and the program Philosophy for Children. It was interesting for me because the analytic tradition of logic and that the part that I manage better, in particular argumentation theory, that was the topics that are more linked to my study, was immediately applied to an educational program, but not as a thinking skills program. That was for me dangerous at the same way, because it was a mere technical project, too much result-oriented, products-oriented. But as educational movement, because I realized immediately that philosophy for children was, in effect, a program, a curriculum. But a lot of people in the world has already interpreted in different way, from different cultural perspective. And so it was really an educational movement, a way to rethinking education. Starting from values and also conceptual dimensions that are, in a way, deposited in the different cultures that could be rethinking, reconsidered from the point of view of education. Education not just as aspect of institutional life of communities, but also as a essential component of human development.
So you started from Lippmann, and then in what ways you started differentiating yourself from that and putting your own, stamp on that?
I started with an important, really important for me work that was the translation of the novels, of the Lippmann novels and the manuals, because I was interested to apply in the Italian school. So I started the translation of the books and the manuals, and the commitment to translation was really hard and also, formative, it's okay, because it was an opportunity not just to have a feasible translation, but to adapt the project into Italian context. So a lot of aspects, not just the single words, but also the value, the meaning that was behind the words.
So it was not a mere translation, it was also trying to incorporate that into Italian culture and the Italian educational system. Yeah. Right, so that, and then how, what were the in-between points in order to reach the jazz education that you are doing now?
Yeah.
How you moved there?
I moved to jazz education through a personal movement, because I moved myself from philosophy to pedagogy and after to didactics. Also in my academic life. So I becoming a teacher. And in order to be a teacher, not a philosopher, not a pedagogist, but a teacher, I really had the need to go inside the problem of a methodological aspect of teaching and learning and so on. So my studies, concentrate. I changed the focus, and the second encounter, fundamentals for me, was Vygotsky.
Okay. All right. So psychological.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not so sure that Vygotsky is a psychologist. And I'm not in the same way. I'm not so sure of that about Piaget and so on. And so I was attracted. I was attracted by Piaget as a constructivist, as a genetical epistemologist, and I really was attracted from him. But the encounter of Vygotsky was for me really a changing and radical changing of perspective, and it was really linked to other authors and philosophers that I already loved. For instance, Wittgenstein and also John Austin and so on. So I really found a strong link, and on this strong link I passed from the perspective of pedagogy to the perspective of teaching, and to the problem of teacher training, and to the problem of teacher education, and to the new conceptualization of the dimension of to be a student. And so what does it mean to be a student? What kind of relationship could be between people that has to teach and people that have to learn? And this relation was so exciting for me, also because I becoming older, mother, and so on. So with a strong experience of relationship as educators and so on, also as mother, you know. And I was in school for a long time. So I teach to children in elementary school, in
so
primary
you've been
school.
a teacher as well
yourself? Yes. I teach 10 years. To children and also in secondary school. And after, I have the opportunity to use my PhD title in order to take part to university competition and so on. So I experienced the
So you have
teaching.
been in the classroom,
Yes, of course.
which is very important because you can see the links between philosophy and the real, teaching practice.
So I started the program of teacher training. Creating an association that was devoted to teacher training, to transform teacher in facilitator, philosophical facilitator in community of inquiry. And at the same time doing community of inquiry in my classroom, and to have the experience of philosophical thinking with children and also with students of secondary school. And this part was really important for me because it was the basis of all my empirical studies about the development of argumentation skills in children and youth through philosophical thinking, through philosophical discourse and dialogue within a community of inquiry structured follow the main line of philosophy for children.
So,
I
go on, sorry.
I choose the main line that for me was create a community of inquiry that was at the same time a community of learning, a community of discourse, a community of practice, and a community of inquiry. These four community that I called tetra community was the only possibility that we can have in order to transform classroom into a community. Take into account that classroom is a specific place and time that institution as a school create in order to educate young generation. So the classroom is not another place. You have time, specific place, and you cannot do whatever you want in a classroom. So, in my opinion, not all practices was okay, not all experience could be proposed in a classroom. You can propose in another context, not in a classroom, that have specific commitment from the society, that has to do with language, with culture, with access to culture, with feasibility and fruibility of language, different language and different cultures, so and different disciplines and so on. So for me, it was really important to put into practice community of inquiry, transforming community inquiry into an inclusive community in which all these four dimensions was implied. And teacher has to transform herself into a facilitator of community creation. In that way, you have to change perspective, you have to change position, you have to change the medium that you use in order to favor and to support this transformation from classroom to a community, an inclusive community that is, firstly, a community of inquiry, but because authentic community of inquiry, it maintains in itself the dimension of learning, the dimension of discourse. The discourses are, a lot of discourses, not just verbal discourse, in the following the idea also Vygotsky and so on, and community of practice. Practice for me means experience, okay? A way in which you can do experience that could be transformed into a practice when this experience is shared and is and become full of shared meanings. For me, practice is an experience that is shared and full of shared meaning. This is a practice.
Yeah, okay. When you did that, this transformation of the classroom to an inquiry, did you do that in a way that was from Lippmann, I don't find the word now, influenced by Lippmann, or it was something that had moved a lot from Lippmann philosophy and you did your own thing somehow differently? Okay,
in a way I did something differently.
From which point of view?
I think that what was different was just my commitment to falsificate the program, because I was my professor during the period of philosophy master was a philosophy of languages that translated Popper in Italian and so on. So my disposition was always critical and falsification of the Lippmann position. So I always was trying to find something that could be falsificated, that all people can philosophize, that this kind of program could be useful for all, and trying to stress this point, trying to do this practice in the boundaries and trying to stress the limits of the program. And this was the force that we had, the power that we had in Italy. In my experience, my university in Padova, that would be useful for me in order to accreditate the practice. Because when a colleague of mine, the logicians, told me, it was impossible that children could deal with logic and so on, I was trying to falsificate this and so to do logic with children. And when psychologists told me, no, you cannot, with people with children so young, to argumentate, to involve in argumentation because of developmental studies of Piaget and so on, it was not an assertion that I would like to accept, try to force in the direction of, I can show you that the hypothetical stage of Piaget is not so important in order to argumentate, to be involved in argumentation with children and so on. So this critical and falsification position stressed a lot of bias, but also open a zone of proximal development for my practice in philosophy for children. So, is okay, philosophy is for all? Okay, we have to do it with all. Who is all? Okay, I don't know who is all, but I know that these children with autism, for instance, is part of the whole. So, okay, we can do with him, put in the circle, and we can do it. We can do it philosophy without word. Yes, we can try. We can do with that student. Okay, put the student in the circle, and we can try, because we have to transform ourselves. We have to transform the practice. We have to transform our discourse. We have to transform our mind in order to create a new way of inquiry. And this was the first strong commitment I had, and was really linked to disability studies. So in the third phase for me was the commitment to disability. Because I'm professor also in inclusive education, so I teach for teachers for special educational needs children. That is a stupid definition, because all of us have special educational needs, so it's a logical category that are completely without sense, because and so this part would be the strongest part of my practice in Italy. Do this philosophy for children with diversity and with different with different frames also. In the classroom you can use body, okay, we can do, you can use body, you can use music, you can use art, and so the next the next stage, the last stage that